Hi everybody, it's Maha here, and I'm here again to read from my book, my award-winning book, Dance of the Womb. And this book was actually a world first book on using the movements of belly dance for birthing. So I'll just wait to see who's out there, and I will share another chapter. So this is actually the 6th share that I've done on Facebook Live. And today's chapter that I'd like to share with you is understanding the physiology of birth. So we'll just wait to see who's there. And if you've just joined, I'm once again reading a chapter from my book, Dance of the Womb. And as many of you know, I'm also the founder of Embody Birth. And Embody Birth used to be called Belly Dance for Birth, but we've expanded the name into Embody Birth. So what I'm teaching now is, how do I embody birth? How do I be in my body for birth using the movements of belly dancing? So belly dance is a very ancient feminine language and movement for birthing. And so by expanding the name into Embody Birth, we can look at all the different ways that we can embody birth and truly come from that self-reference place of autonomy when we give birth as women. And many people say the birthing wisdom is within you. You know how to give birth. And many women need to know, how do I give birth? Hi, Germany and Switzerland, that's beautiful. Many of us ask, how can I be in my body for birth? How do I access and activate that knowledge, that wisdom that everybody talks about? And the way that I've been teaching for 20 years is through the movements of the belly dancing. And I'm seeing more and more clips of women on Instagram and on Facebook using these feminine movements of the dance to embody in their pregnancy and for birth. So it's beautiful to see that my 20 years of work is starting to resonate and ripple out into the world, which is wonderful. Because in order to give birth, we need to really come into our body wisdom and trust in that wisdom and know that everything we need is inside of us. That is our starting reference point. So when we speak about self-referenced autonomy for birth, that means that I trust the wisdom within my body. How can I do that? And the way that I teach is through movement, sound, and breath in connection to my baby. So we are simplifying childbirth education into the ancient feminine ways of woman. So, as I mentioned, I'm reading from my book, Dance of the Womb. And this chapter this week is getting a little bit more into the physiology of birth, which is understanding the physiology of birth and understanding the physical body. We talk a lot about the emotional, the energetic, the spiritual body in relationship to the physical body. And this chapter is about the physical body and how the emotional body connects to the physicality. So in starting this chapter, it is important for some pregnant women that they have an understanding of the workings of their physical body, or the scientific knowledge of pregnancy and birth in preparation for labour. For this reason, I have included the following information, which can be of assistance in giving you a certain framework which gives a context within which to place the movements of the belly dance for birth. In providing this background information, I have included the basic areas of the physical body that play an important role in pregnancy and for birth. There are many books available that delve into more detail, and many online resources as well, should you wish to know more. In 2003, I did the first doula course in Australia with a beautiful doctor, Dr. Christine Vos. And I have a quote from her in my book in this chapter, and she says, and it's a beautiful quote, "Only truly knowledgeable people can sit back and let birth unfold." I love that, because that's what I teach as well. When I teach to birth professionals, I ask, how much can we just sit back and allow the song and dance of birth to unfold? Be an anchor, be a witness with woman. This is not about you as a birth professional. This is about This is about the woman and her baby, number one, then her partner, the father, the family, community, humanity, and then all who are involved. But number one, it is about the woman with her baby. We need to trust the unfoldment of birth. So that's a beautiful quote. Now, the primal brain is an area we talk a lot about in my Embody Birth training, and understanding the primal brain and its significance in birth and how the belly dance birth movements relate to the primal brain. So we do a whole section on the brain in my training. The following extract has been taken from a text by Dr. Christine Vos on the primal brain in birthing, and this was from 2004. The human brain is constructed of three different brains that are built upon one upon the other. The different parts of the human brain system work in unity because each new part became incorporated into the existing one over the course of human evolution. The early primal brain structures, composed of the reptilian brain and the mammalian brain, completed their evolutionary development in the ancestors of human beings 1 million years ago. The primal brain tissue, situated at the top of the spinal column, remains functionally distinct from the most recent brain structure, which is called the neocortex. This is the neocortex, the thinking brain. So, thank you, Natalie. That's beautiful. So in my Embody Birth training, we look at how can we shut off the neocortex and come into our primal brain. And as I've mentioned before, it is the primal brain that gives birth. So we need to get out of that rational brain. So what is the primal brain and what is its role in the birthing process? The primal brain is not only shown to be the seat of emotion, but it is of vital importance in instinctive human functions like the birthing process. For natural birthing to occur, the primal brain needs to be active and the neocortex subdued. And that was a quote from Michelle O'Dont. This subduing of the neocortex creates a trance-like effect in the person, and this enables women to reach ecstatic states during the birth process. The ecstasy of birth is not often reached within modern birthing practices, but it is possible for every woman. And I think that ecstatic state we talk about has sexual implications. It brings out the sensuality of woman. It brings out that feeling of endorphins, that euphoric feeling that birth can be. And I often talk about this. Unfortunately today, such a small percentage of women understand and feel birth from this ecstatic, euphoric place. And this is what we want to bring back to birth, is the language of the feminine. Those of us who have experienced birth like this, to share this possibility with other women. So we're not saying that every woman, or I'm not saying that every woman needs to birth ecstatically or euphorically. That would be ridiculous. But what I say is that there is a possibility that this could happen if we create the environments within which women feel safe, secure, and loved. And as many of you know, I have that saying, a woman doesn't need to be saved in birth, she needs to be loved. And also, birth is designed to be ecstatic in order to ensure that women seek to engage in the experience time and time again. Ecstatic experiences are available to all human beings without actually giving birth, but they are based on the same kind of brain mechanisms. Ecstatic states are reached by engaging in activities that reduce stimuli to the neocortex and enhance the work of the primal brain. These activities are repetitious, calming, hypnotic, and they help the person to focus deeply within themselves to touch their spiritual primal core. Yes, Elaine, exactly. Self-hypnosis and the movements of the belly dance birth bring us into this meditative, mindful movement state. So through the movement and engaging with that movement, with the breath and with sound and the rhythmic sensations of birth, we come into that place that calms the nervous system, relaxes our whole brain, The brain waves are also very important in birth. When we come deep into the theta and delta brain waves, coming down, down, down into the body, connecting with baby, we come into that meditative place. And we do it through breath, but we also do it through movement. And this is what the belly dance movements help us to engage into, that aspect of meditative movement for birthing. So during the birthing process, a delicately balanced cascade of interrelated hormones flood the body and brain. As Elaine has said, the oxytocin and the endorphins, these are the hormones of birth in the first stage of labor that are really important, that we need to release. And the way we release is through being in a calming place and having calming state within the body. Remember, the birth environment is not just external. The birth environment is on the inside. So how does a woman, a mother with her baby, really focus deep down to engage, to create an environment that is relaxing, where fear, we can let go of fears. And as people know in my training, sorry, just dropped that. As people know in my training, the ability to come into that relaxed state means that I have to face my fears. It's not that I say I don't have any fear. It's okay to have fear. How do I engage with my fear? How do I inquire into that fear? How do I move through the fear of birth? Fear inherently is not a bad thing. It motivates me to seek deeper into myself. And that is why birth is a spiritual rite of passage, when we can be in all the emotions, the feelings that arise in birth, and inquire upon them. So the various hormones, the catecholamines, the endorphins, the oxytocin, the ACTH, the prolactin, and so on, rise and fall in a complex interplay that is attuned to the needs of the unfolding birth. This is called the chemical symphony of birth. These all-important chemicals are secreted and controlled directly from the primal brain. When the primal brain is unimpeded in its work, labor is able to proceed naturally. It is therefore important that the birth attendants support the woman in a manner that reduces neocortical stimulation and thus enhances the work of the primal brain. And I also talk about the birth professionals themselves need to come into that place within themselves where they are connected to that rawness, that primal aspect of themselves as women. Hi Elaine, I am not a member yet, but I would love to. I love the work in pre and perinatal psychology. So yes, I would love to be involved. And I've been doing this work in embodied birth for 20 years, and I feel like the world is ready now for this kind of work. And women are ready to embrace this work because it's the missing link in childbirth preparation. That meditative movement, self-referenced movement and autonomy for birth for women. This is what is needed, and this is what's missing. And also for the baby, because we know that the baby's nervous system is wired and their brain is wired on the mother's nervous system. So this duality needs to come into a place of calm, love, harmonics, and resonance. So when a birthing woman's primal brain is dictating her labor, the birthing achieves an optimum state. The woman in this state acts and appears as if she is on another planet, which is one of Odon's quotes. This otherworldly state of woman during natural birthing is easy to understand. It is simply that the conventions of modern cultural practices, those ways of conducting oneself in society, no longer have meaning to her. And again, reducing the neocortex activity to come into the primal brain. And I'm talking about this from my book, Dance of the Womb, and how the movements of the belly dancing bring us into this place. These ancient, intuitive, instinctive birthing movements. So these influences designed for social control are constructed logically in the neocortex as each individual grows, learning that such activities as screaming, moving around naked, and opening the bowels are not done in company. These social rules become deeply imprinted, and hence the labouring woman whose neocortex is alert will be most reluctant to go against the socio-cultural rules of her lifetime, and this will inhibit her labour. However, if the social controls of the neocortex are removed, the labouring woman is not bound by her modern conditioning and is able to enter a primal state that overrides the niceties of socio-cultural conditioning. And if you remember last week, I talked about a midwife who I talked to and said those women who are less inhibited in birth usually, on her observation, have better birth outcomes. So again, all the time I talk about the environment that we create for women in birth. What kind of environment are we creating? I'm just going to stick this back on because it's fallen off and I'm holding on to that. There we go. So the woman in natural birth responds instinctively to her body's needs and is able to do anything that is required in the birthing process. We need to get the foundations correct in birth. We need to understand from where birth originates in the body. If we can really understand that it's coming from the primal brain, and then we do everything that we can to create environments that support the primal brain knowing. This is one of the basic elements of creating environments for birthing. So we talk about bright lights, we talk about loud voices, we talk about smells that are not conducive to the woman in labour, especially in a hospital setting or a birthing setting. And that's why so many women choose or want to birth in a place they call home, which can be their home, or they have to set up an environment where they feel safe. No worries, Natalie. Lots of love. So an understanding of two broad principles concerning the primal brain and neocortex provide the foundation of good midwifery and doula practice when supporting the women during the natural processes. The first principle is based on understanding that the primal brain completed its development before the linguistically able human being evolved and hence does not respond to language in the way that the neocortex does. The labouring woman cannot tune into her primal instincts if the people with her talk, question her, or make comments, which I just spoke about. Birth is very basic too. We have created such complexity around birth that we've complicated the whole scenario. We have interfered too much. We've told women what to do too much. We do not trust birth. Trusting birth is a key. When we trust birth, birth trusts the woman. When a woman can trust herself with her baby, birth will unfold from a self-reference place of autonomy. This is what we need to do. We need to stand back and allow the song and dance of birth to unfold. Women know birth. To embody birth, these belly dance birth movements are like a guiding light. They shine a light on the pathway. They are like a compass to bring women back home to themselves. This is where birth education needs to come to. And this is what I've been teaching for 20 years. I hand back birth to the woman. We give the understanding of the physical and the physiology of birth. And then we say to women, I completely trust you. You trust in yourself with your baby. Move where you need to go. Make decisions based on what you need. Self-inquiry. What do I need in order for birth to unfold? I gave birth at home at 46 years of age. There was no way I was going into hospital. For me personally, I felt safe to give birth at home. There was nothing wrong with me. It was my third birth, and I knew what I needed because I trusted in myself and my baby, my body, the physical, emotional, spiritual, and energetic essence of birth within myself. So if people are thinking birth around us, if people have fear around us, that energetically will move into the woman's birthing field. We need to keep that out of the birthing field. People who work in birth need to look at themselves and they need to self-inquire. Why am I a birth worker? Am I trying to heal something within myself? Am I holding in my body? Am I constricted? Am I breathing freely, or am I holding? We need to ask ourselves these questions as birth professionals as well. So trust is a key in birth, and self-inquiry as ourselves as birth professionals. So the primal brain function is best to facilitate a natural birth when the woman is unafraid. If we have people who are fearful around us, that includes partners or family members. This will pass on to the woman. We are in a very vulnerable space when we are giving birth as well. We are very highly tuned in to what is going on around us. So we are in the otherworldly place, but we are also very sensitive energetically to what's going on in the birthing field. We need to really address this in hospitals and places where women come to give birth, outside of the home, and in the home environment too, I should say. Every environment, we need to be very mindful about what kind of environments we are creating and what kind of environment is within our own bodies as a birthing professional and birth worker, in order for a woman to feel safe. So when a woman feels unafraid, this not only provides us with the second principle of natural birthing, but it also explains why women birth better in their home environment. A reduction of fear is achieved when the woman not only feels secure and supported by her care providers, but when she is convinced that her care providers will protect and guide her during her birth. With this knowledge, the woman is able to release neocortical control. Of course, for this understanding to occur, the woman needs to have built a relationship with her midwife or doula and other care providers throughout her pregnancy. Yes, Elaine, I agree with you. And it's ridiculous to not allow the woman to find her own place in birth, the places where she needs to move. And I've been saying this for 20 years. Get off the bed if that's what she wants. Let the woman take charge of her birth with her baby. This is where we go wrong. We externalize the help to such a degree that she doesn't know anymore how to find her core center. Being anchored in her pelvis, being anchored in her womb with her baby, this is where she will access the womb wisdom of birth. Using these intuitive movements, she will activate that wisdom and be guided by it, not by somebody on the outside. Being a doula, we witness that all the time. People telling a woman what to do. And I say, and as I've said to many doctors in births that I've attended, stand back. Leave her alone. She knows what she's doing. Her body knows what to do. We don't need you telling her. And this is a really important aspect of birth. But those care providers, as Sheila Kitsinger often talks about, feel that they need to do something to her to be of value. No. Stand back. Breathe. The interference is endless. Yes, it is. And we have to look at, as birth professionals, why am I interfering? What is the need? I have a wonderful blog on my website called Throwing Rocks into the Woman's Birthing Stream. I think you would like that blog, Elaine. Because all of these obstacles that are being put in the way of women's birthing streams, we talk about it in my embodied birth training. What happens when you throw a rock into a woman's birthing river? We create obstacles. And then she has to find her way around that obstacle. That obstacle wasn't there before. Somebody externally has thrown it in. So we need to look at that as a birth professional. Why am I throwing these obstacles into the way of a woman's birthing stream? That's true, Janelle. Why doesn't she know? Because the woman hasn't been trusted. So we need to bring that trust back into women. But in order to do that, the birth professional must trust in themselves. So we're all losing that trust and that connection. Thank you, Jeffrey. That's very sweet. Thank you. So, of course, women need to build a relationship with their midwife. But the midwife needs to build a relationship with the woman too. And again, this is another thing we talk about in my training. It's not a one-way street. It's not that I've got all the knowledge and you have no knowledge, or I have the empowerment around birth to the woman. I don't like to use that word, I empower women. I never use that word because that implies that I have the power and you don't have the power. I say I like to inspire women to find the birthing within themselves with their baby. Remember, the baby's having a journey with the mother. We keep interfering and saying we know better. So my work is always about bringing birth back into the hands, heart, womb of mother with her baby. So when facilitating the natural birth process, it is also important to realize the primal brain of the human being is like that of any mammal. It is reassured when the birthing process is unobserved and when the birthing environment is quiet, warm, darkened, and the sound and smells of the environment are comforting and safe. From this second principle, the importance of protecting the woman's environment is clear. If a woman is unable to birth in safety, for example, wherever she feels safe. Now, we must remember that. A woman must birth where she feels safe. What's safe to me may not be safe to another. You cannot dictate what is safe to a woman. She needs to find that for herself. And every birth, where one feels safe, may change. And how about this for an idea? We can change our mind. Imagine that. We make a decision 1 day later, 1 month later, 1 hour during the birth, we may change our mind and need something different. We seem to have this idea in our culture that if I change my mind, that is wrong. We make a judgment on that. When we are pregnant and when we are in the birthing environment, so much is flowing through our body with our baby that we can make a decision in the birth. We don't have to follow a protocol when we're giving birth because birth takes us on a journey. It is a rite of passage. I don't know where I'm going to be taken in the realm of the birthing when I'm actually giving birth. Who knows where I need to go? Using the movements of the dance, using the movements of belly dance is one way of tracking that compass of birth. Where do I need to go? We talk about that. We talk about in the birth process, where do I need to go? Where does my body need to move? Do I need to be in stillness? Do I need to be in that hypnotic meditative place of doing nothing? Do I just need the time with my breath to integrate and process this birth? And then what happens in hospital often when a woman takes that time to just be in the stillness? The body understands, the intelligence of the body understands this moment of stillness that might last 1 minute or 1 hour. What happens in the birthing environment is the professionals see, my God, the labour's stopped. We need to do something. But they're not realising that time frame that the woman doesn't calculate as time, because birth is timeless. She needs time to integrate. She needs a moment, however long that is, to process what's happening, to connect with her baby, to feel into birth as a rite of passage experience. So she may need to breathe. She may need to slow down. And the labour may need to stop. There's a reason for that. That integration is part of birthing. No, she doesn't need to be given an injection of syntocin to speed up the labour and then create a whole drama and put the baby into distress with the mother. Birth is about timelessness. Birth is about patience. Birth is about the mother regulating the birthing field for herself with her baby. We need to understand the foundations of what birth is. If birth is a somatic spiritual practice, then we need to address the environment to create that kind of foundation upon which a woman can give birth in safety and respect, and to be honoured for what she's going through within her body. The intelligence of the mother, the intelligence of the baby dance together in birthing. So this means that besides ensuring the atmosphere of the room, everyone entering the space enters as though they are a visitor attending a solemn occasion, or as I would say now, a spiritual occasion. Any visitor in the room should also understand the dangers of entering the room with an attitude of speaking or making loud noises and bringing odours in the birth room that are a threat to the primal brain. Yes, Janelle, the baby needs to process with her. Exactly. The first moments outside of the womb are also vital. The mother and the baby dance together in this spiritual unfolding of what it is to be a human being. We know that hour after birth, that golden mystical hour after birth, is so important for the dance of mother and baby to bond, to be connected without the interference from the outside. And that's another talk on that hour after birth. But it starts right from conception, all through pregnancy, all through the birthing process, and after birth, and then into mothering and parenting. We've taken this away from women, and this is what I do, is I reclaim birth as a spiritual practice, and that's from the place that I teach from. So women know it's not a clinical cold experience, or that's not what it should be. It is a deeply heartfelt spiritual unfolding for mother, baby, family, community, humanity. How on earth are we going to raise the level of consciousness on this planet if we don't start with the way in which we understand the nobility of birth, that birth is about love? And many of you know that's one of the things that I am very, very strong about in my message, that birth is about love. How do we all engage and be present with love, be present with our hearts for birth? And my embody birth training really brings birth into that place of love for us all, so we can all sip from that nectar of the heart and of love for birth. So we need to, in my final statement here, we need to understand that woman in natural labour needs to be protected from any kind of interference. And I would say she needs to be protected from anything that is other than love for birthing. So that is a part of the chapter, The Physiology of Birth, in my book, Dance of the Womb, that I've been reading from and commenting upon today. So if anyone's interested in my Embody Birth teacher training, these classes that I've been teaching now for 20 years and now training birth professionals is to have an understanding of birth from an energetic, emotional, spiritual and physical perspective. How can we use the movements of ancient belly dance, the language of the feminine for birth, in order for women to come back to themselves, their own hands, their own heart, their own womb for birthing, and birth professionals to understand the depth of the true nature of what birth is for all of humanity. So I'd love you to come and have a look at my website at www.mahaalmusa.com. I've got many trainings coming up in 2017. I'm very excited to be coming to speak at the Human Rights in Childbirth Conference in India next year in February. And I will be talking about revering and honouring women and babies for birth and how we can do that. How can we create authentic platforms of understanding and honouring and have with dignity for women for birth? We need foundations that really understand this. Otherwise, we're not going to get anywhere. So we can have all the knowledge in the world, but if we don't build a foundation and a platform that sees birth as a spiritual practice of love for humanity, then we're only going to take small steps. So we want to create that platform so all birth professionals and everyone working in the birthing field understands this as a true rite of passage experience for women. So thank you for listening again today to my readings and sharing, and thank you so much for all the amazing comments. I love you all, and until next time, lots of love. Bye.